charge this evening. You're the vice chair.
Just until we get to that point, yes. It's all
Your
relish
moment
in
of
the
glory.
yes. Okay, my microphone is on. Is the TV and online people all ready? Okay. Yeah, I'm ready to call the meeting to order.
I've got one.
Okay. Yes, my microphone, well, at least the green light is on. Whether the microphone is on, I don't know. Okay, all right. No mistakes? Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Canal Open Space Conservation Agency Board of Directors meeting for February 21st, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and if you please stand and join me in a salute to the flag. Ready, begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we please have the roll call? Here.
Yes.
Here. Yes.
Here.
Thank you. And I know that next we have a very special occasion coming up as a presentation announcement. It's actually an administration of the oath of office for our newest board member. And understand we have a special guest that's going to be helping us through that process. Is that correct? Yes, if you want to please join us at the podium.
For your appointment to the Board of Directors, if you don't mind, please standing up. I'm going to administer your oath of office. You can raise your right hand, and at the end of the oath, you can just say, I do. Do you, Dorothy Sullivan, solemnly swear that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that you will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that you take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that you will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which you are about to enter. Congratulations. You have your oath of office in front of you as well.
Thank you very much, and welcome officially to the board. I know it's been a lot. We've kind of been going through a lengthy process to actually make it official, but Dorothy, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have our public comments, and I do have one public speaker card with Elaine Hagan. Elaine, if you want to join us at the podium.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you, yes. I'm here because it's almost Trails Education Day's time again. The week of April 22nd through April 25th, we will be hosting almost 1,100 fourth grade CVUSD students from all 17 elementary schools. And we would absolutely adore it if all of the board members would take part by leading hikes. Some of you have already done that. Director Sullivan has a big part in the whole program. She runs the most important workshop of them all. Of course, they're all important. But she teaches children how to be safe and courteous in the open space. And she does it by showing them what not to do. And children love to see adults do dumb things, so they pay close attention. Anyway, thank you all for all the support of Trails Education Days through these years. This will be our 30th time. Would actually be the 32nd except for COVID. And we look forward to working with all of you. Thank you.
Elaine, could you repeat those dates for us one more time, please?
Yes, it's April 22nd through 25th.
22nd to 25th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I have no more cards unless somebody else has thrown them in at the last minute. Okay, all right, we'll move on to the consent calendar then. We have the approval of the minutes from our November 8th meeting. Any comments or questions? And if not, a motion to approve? Yes, Director Huffer.
I'd like to move approval of the minutes for the November 8th, 2023 meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second for that?
Happy to second.
Super. Okay. No further comments? If that's the case, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we move on. All right, next is our action items, and first up is annual board organization. And I'm going to ask our secretary, Mr. Brian Stark, if he would at least lead us into this next step here.
Well, the first action before you tonight is the organization of the board and the choosing of the chair, vice chair, and secretary. In accordance with the provisions of Article 8 of the COSCA Joint Exercises of Powers Agreement, the COSCA board shall consist of and elect a chair and a vice chair. Section 12 of the COSCA Manual of Procedure indicates the election shall occur at the first regular meeting of each calendar year, and that is today. Article 8 of the JPA further states that the board shall appoint a board secretary. The secretary may, but need not be a member of the board. The COSCA board secretary is currently myself, Brian Stark, as COSCA administrator. As the board secretary is not an ex officio position, it is recommended that appointment of the board secretary should also occur on an annual basis. So the recommended actions for tonight is defined that this action is not a project as defined under the California Environmental Quality Act. Then you will discuss and elect a board chair, a vice chair, and a board secretary. And at this point, I will send it back to the board.
Okay, well, only acting officially as vice chair and with no other really authority than that. I'll just kind of open it up. We have within our packet a brief review over the recent vice chair and chair positions. At this point, I guess it's just a matter of moving on to the board chair process and open for discussion or nominations or any other actions as proposed by the board. Director Huffer.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Director Bob Engler to be chair of the COSCA board for the coming year.
I don't hear any opposition to that, so I'll take that as an acceptance on behalf of.
Yes, I'd be happy to thank you, Director Huffer, for the vote of confidence, and let's see if my fellow board members are liking that idea.
I'll give one last chance for any other nominations. Yes, Director Newman.
I'm certainly not going to oppose my colleague's nomination for this by any means. This is more of an observation in that I thought the inclusion of the historical data was quite useful in noticing there's been a pretty even trade-off between CRPD officials and the city, and I hope that will continue. I also like that there was a neutral party in one of those positions throughout. So I'm not sure, given if we do proceed and name Director Engler chair, we'll have to pick one or the other this time. But I do like the idea about citizen representation throughout, and then also a trade-off between our two agencies.
I thank you for that, Director Newman, and I think that's always good. It's probably an unwritten practice that we've observed on the board. I know at least in my time, and perhaps at Director
Yes,
Huffer.
it's a norm, not a rule.
Right, right. And I know of my knowledge, since Rory's been on the board, she's always been the chair. But we have alternated the vice chair position, and I think it was just in recognition of her expertise and her obligation and her dedication, probably more than anything else. But yeah, there's nothing written for that, and I think just being able to bounce back and forth, and including the public position, I think is just a good practice, even though it's nothing official. So, any other comments or nominations? All right, hearing no further nominations, I guess I'll officially close the nominations if that's a practice, and then just offer up for our one nominee, Director Bob Engler. All those in favor of his escalating to the chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we got it. Congratulations, Director Engler, or Bob, as we usually go by. So at this point, I will officially pass off the next process to you, and you can take it from here.
I'd be happy to do this sans script. It's very good. Our next order of business then probably is to come up with a vice chair. And so I would open our nominations for vice chair for this coming year. Mr. Newman.
I'd like to nominate Director Huffer for that position, if he is amenable to accepting that nomination.
I will accept the nomination. Thank you.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Then I'll close nominations for vice chair, and any comments from my directors? Then we'll ask for a vote on that as well. We'll ask for a. We have a nomination, so we can vote on that. So very good. So please, Madam Secretary. Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
Yes.
Now you know.
Very good. And we have one other order of business in this area is to nominate a secretary, a recording secretary for us. Do I have any nominations from the board on recording secretary? Director Nichols.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would like to continue the practice of having Mr. Brian Stark continuing with that role. Makes a good I guess, contiguous process as we go forward and keeping us in balance. So I would like to support him as continuing as board secretary.
I don't think I have the option of denying either, so.
I was going to offer you the opportunity, but thank you for cutting me off at the pass. Any other nominations for secretary? Seeing none then, I'll entertain a vote for secretary. Yes.
Yes?
Aye.
Yes.
So for the sake of dotting all the i's, and we have the finding that this is not a project as defined under California Environmental Quality Act. If you'd make that finding, that would be helpful.
I would find that it has little to do with the Environmental Quality Act. You're correct. Is that a consensus of our board?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yes.
Very good. Next on our list of things to do here is we have, and 6B is annual financial report for a fiscal year coming up from last year. Do we have a report to Mr. Stark?
Yes, the COSCA's annual financial report for fiscal year 2022 through 23, which ended on June 30th, 2023, was included in the board's package, and I'm sure you all enjoyed reading it and have it memorized. This report is prepared by accounting staff in the city's finance department and audited by Rogers, Anderson, Malady, and Scott LLP, and summarizes COSCA's financial activities, capital assets, and fund balances. The report was completed in November of 23 in conjunction with the City of Thousand Oaks annual financial report. Tonight we have Caressa Gomez from the city's finance department to present a short summary.
Good evening, members of the board. As Brian said, my name is Caressa Gomez. I'm the accounting supervisor in our accounting division in the finance department, and I will be providing a summary of COSCA's financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. So here we go. COSCA's net position increased $7.3 million to $97.4 million at the fiscal year end. Program revenues increased $4.6 million compared to prior fiscal year, primarily due to $4.5 million in capital grants and contributions for land. General revenues increased $0.3 million, primarily due to the Woolsey fire settlement proceeds. Program expenses increased $0.7 million, primarily due to overall increases in open space maintenance and restoration. COSCA ended with a $9.9 million in cash and investments that is held for future open space acquisitions and maintenance. This is a decrease of $0.5 million compared to prior fiscal year. Capital assets increased $7.5 million for an ending balance of $87.2 million. This increase is related to land additions of $7.6 million, primarily due to $7.2 million of developer donations, and $331,000 was actually land that was purchased. And that concludes my summary for the COSCA financials. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Board Directors. Mr. Newman.
Yes, thank you very much for your report. For my edification, I'd just like to understand the assessment. The bulk of the capital assets are open space, something like 86, nearly 87 million of the 87.2 million total. So my questions around that are one, how is that value assessed? And two is, how often is that assessment made?
Generally, at the time of acquisition, the balance of the value of the land is posted as the asset. From there, they don't really change beyond that. Where the land value just kind of is what it stays on the books pretty much as it is.
At the time of acquisition?
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Well, thank you very much. We do need a motion to receive and file, and I'd entertain a motion from someone. Mr. Newman.
So moved. And I also find this to be CEQA exempt.
Very good. Can we please have a vote?
Chair Engler,
Yes.
Director Huffer,
Yes?
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Sullivan, Director Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Very good. We do have item C under Title VI. We have appropriation of funds for roadway repairs and drainage management along the Autumn Ridge Road. Mr. Stark.
Thank you. The item here before you, as you said, is appropriation of funds for roadway repairs and drainage management out at the Lang Ranch Open Space. I do have a brief PowerPoint show that I'll preface. In May of 2023, COSCA received a final roadways management plan for the Lang Ranch open space, which was prepared by M&S Engineering. The plan was funded by a grant from the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy as part of Governor Newsom's Early Actions Program supporting fire safety projects. Emergency access to the Lang Ranch open space via existing unpaved roads depends on having roads maintained in a good condition. COSCA partners with the Ventura County Fire Department for regular road maintenance, but conditions exist throughout the road system at Lang Ranch that require repairs that are beyond the scope of regular road maintenance. COSCA is beginning to work on the road sections with high priority rankings to implement repairs that will reduce the long-term maintenance work and ensure that we have safe access for first responders. The first of these projects is the repair of a failing slope along the Autumn Ridge Fire Road and to manage drainage that is causing the erosion. Oops, I went too fast. So here's a map. So this is up just off of the intersection of Westlake Boulevard and Autumn Ridge Road. That the project here will collect road drainage and convey it down a steep slope through a structure, probably a pipe. Then some road work uphill from it will reduce the water concentration on the road as well, with potential alteration of the shape of an existing gully there to help stabilize the slopes and keep them from collapsing any further. COSCA right now has a request for proposals in circulation. We have one proposal received, and we should have all of them in the next 10 days or so. Kind of show you what this looks like. This is looking down on the road, and you can kind of see we have two areas where water's leaving the road and running off and causing gullies. This project site actually has a history of road washouts and temporary repairs, so we've patched it up a number of times over the years, but with the resources provided through the Woolsey Fire Recovery funds, we're starting to look at opportunities to eliminate these maintenance burdens for the long haul. So we have one picture of what it does do when it rains really hard. Occasionally it just washes right up about through the road, and the photo on your right is just looking up the gully. The road's on the top there, but it kind of shows the shape of it. This is a pretty sandy soil type up here, so it doesn't have a whole lot of, it's not a super strong soil, so it does erode pretty easily. But we do think with some manipulations we can get it to stabilize out there. So the estimated cost of the project is really a guess at about $60,000. We do have current remaining funds in that grant of $37,000 that we'll put toward this project. What we're trying to do is make sure we have enough funding to backstop a project if the project costs do run over the available grant funds. We may also have an opportunity, based on the bids that we get, to do some additional work. So that's why we're asking for a preliminary budget appropriation of $50,000, and this would come from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund allocation that's earmarked for land management. We think the Woolsey Fire Recovery Funds are the most appropriate funding source because the project addresses damages that are related to fire impacts, and the road repairs address problems that were exacerbated by the damage caused by the fire. We did experience a lot of extra runoff and erosion out in this area. So our recommended actions tonight are A, to find this action is categorically exempt under section 15304 of the California Environmental Quality Act as a minor alteration of land, and to authorize an appropriation of $50,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund land management allocation for construction and design services to repair damage and resolve the recurring damage on this road. I'll just say budget-wise, if we're trying to make the project a reasonable cost. If we are able to, get the project done for a lower amount, what we would do is just, use the allocation up to whatever is needed, and then we would just roll any excess back into the unallocated funds in that account. So it's just moving, so we'll only be moving what we need based on the bids we receive. And with that, I can take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Stark. Any questions from my board members? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Stark. A couple of questions. With the ranch roads trails, which I know are used for regular vehicle access, whether it be rangers or others, are those graded on a regular basis with an actual road grader to make sure they're passable? Is that just on an as-needed basis, or like annual, every 5 years? Didn't know what the current practice is for that.
So the current practice is we partner with the Ventura County Fire Department. They have the equipment and operators to do regular road maintenance. They don't grade it every year. It's sort of, we each year, I go out and we take a field trip out to look at all the roads and talk about what we'll do this year. This past year, because we just had the new roadways management plan completed, there were recommendations for roads management processes and methods. So we were able to convey some of this to the fire department, and they were able to start adjusting some of the maintenance regime so that we could fix some of the problems that we have out there. So it's kind of on an as-needed basis. But when we have a big rain year like last year, and probably one this year too, we're going to see some excessive wear on these roads and erosion. Rangers are patching them up as they can. We do have some equipment to do the minor repair jobs, culverts and cleanings. So that's kind of how the big work gets done by the fire department on a fairly regular basis, just in consultation, and then rangers pick up the slack.
Okay. And my second question is, does the fire department also patrol these and have a separate assessment, or is this a joint effort? I didn't know if you meant we, like we as in COSCA, or we as in you and a fire department representative.
The fire department has resources to, create safe spaces for them to work. So they offer those to us. So in a way, it's somewhat of a gift, a much appreciated partnership, but it also, with our responsibilities for managing the roads, we provide some input on that, as they come out. So.
Okay. Yeah, because I didn't know if some of the, roadways are perhaps valuable for open space maintenance purposes, but wouldn't necessarily be considered a fire department access road because they didn't perceive there was a need for it, or if they are pretty much just using whatever's out there.
Well, they don't maintain everything that we might call a road. There are some things like it's a road in kind of an academic sense, but it wouldn't provide value for them. So they're working on primarily just on some of the main roads that they feel provide them the best access for their needs. There are some roads that are not actually maintained. They are becoming more like trails. In these cases, though, a lot of it's where there's no soil left. It's washed down to bedrock, and there really isn't much that can be done to make a passable road at a reasonable cost. So it's likely that those just and our ranger staff don't really need those roads either. And we have kind of a central core of roads that we use and maintain, and those are the most valuable. The rest are kind of managed as trails as necessary.
Okay. All right. Thanks. And thanks for the photos. I was planning to go out there and take a look at it, but the weather didn't permit.
Yeah, trails were closed, right?
Yeah. I was trying to follow the rules. Thank you.
Ms. Sullivan.
Yes, thank you for the photos. Having been out there this past Saturday, even when you're on the trail and you see it, it doesn't look that dramatic, but to see the actual slide from the slope really points it out. My question you may or may not be able to answer until you have all the bids in, but will there be a trail closure during the work? How long do we expect that closure to last?
So I anticipate that, yeah, there'll be a short term because, we anticipate needing to use heavy equipment, and heavy equipment and trail users don't mix well. So we'll do a short term closure. We don't anticipate that it would take all that long. The contractors that are interested in the project, they have skills and equipment to actually, for them, this is not a huge project. It might just be a few days.
Thank you.
Thank you. And one quick question from me, Mr. Stark. I assume we're putting a pipe in there to help divert the water underneath the road and keep the erosion to a minimum. Is there plans now to address any of the existing damage that's been done to the hillside there? Any restoration? Are we just going to are we going to have a passive revegetation there? Or what's the plan on that?
So in order to put a structure in there, they would have to modify the slopes of that. So right now, you see it kind of has jagged edges to it, and those aren't stable, and they'll continue to collapse until they reach, whatever the capacity of the soil is to support a slope. But those slopes will be feathered during construction, likely just to make a space for a structure. The structure would be pinned on site using structural features. The regrowth of vegetation is anticipated to be mostly passive. What Anna and I think is the best option is probably to seed it, but we wouldn't do that. We hope to get out and do the construction here in the spring. It depends on when it dries out. You don't want to do the excavation stuff when it's totally dry. Having a little damp soil is the best time to do this. But any seeding would happen in the fall prior to the rains, and that way we're not just feeding birds.
Well, that is part of our charge, just to.
Yeah.
But,
We throw a few
no, thank you
extra
for that. I was wondering because it looked like quite a bit of erosion there on the hill. Are you thinking about any brickbat or anything to help tamp that down?
I think once we solve the erosion problem and establish a stable slope on it that it should hold, we'll also be doing some drainage work in the area to reduce the amount of water that's actually coming down there. So we think the combination of drainage management uphill from it and the structure itself, there really shouldn't be any future risk on that slope.
Thank you. No more questions from me. Any other questions from our board? Very good. This is another action item, so we need to find if this is categorically exempt, and also we need to find and appropriate the requested $50,000. So I'd like I see 50 here.
Yeah, 50.
I'll accept a motion from my board. Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, I'll be happy to make that motion, Mr. Chair, to follow staff's recommendation 1 and 2 regarding the categorical exemption and also the appropriation of the $50,000.
Thank you. Any second?
Second.
Very good. Can we have a vote?
Chair Engler,
Yes.
Director Huffer,
Yes.
Director Newman,
Aye.
Director Sullivan, Director Nichols.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Very good. Now we're on to some information items. We have our 2024 COSCA priorities report, please. I assume that's also you, Mr. Stark.
So this is just a very, very brief report, just some things that COSCA is going to be looking at this year. As we just started one of them, and that's roadways out at Lang Ranch. We're parsing all the data from the original roadways management plan. So we're starting to map out and develop different project sites, trying to group up different actions that need to happen in close proximity to each other. So you'll probably hear from us again here sometime during the year when we get to some of those other projects. We're also currently beginning the process that was outlined a long time ago in our strategic plan to start preparing open space management plans for all of our open space units. This, of course, will be a multi-year process. This year we'll be beginning that work in what we're calling the Lang Ranch Regional Open Space Plan. And that's because we have 4 open space areas that are really close to each other and have very similar resources, and they're all connected. And rather than write 40 different plans for all of our open space units, we think we'll start grouping them up. So this will include management strategies for the Sunset Hills, Wood Ridge, Lang Ranch, and Oak Brook open space areas for this one. So that'll probably be the only one we roll through this year. That's an exciting time too. The other main activity that we're looking at is expanding our weed management programs. So Anna's put together priority lists for weed management projects for 2024, and so we'll probably be coming back and asking for funding for some of that stuff. We have existing appropriations right now that from last year that will cover weed management work. But what we'll be focusing on is the areas we've been working on over the last couple of years. We're seeing really some great improvement in the conditions out there, especially out at Western Plateau. It's looking great. We've done a lot of thistle work and fennel, but it's really this year we hope to expand on those activities. We'll be looking at a lot more work on tumbleweeds. Those are a fire threat and kind of obnoxious to our neighbors, so we're prioritizing some of that work. But anyway, those are kind of our main areas. And then, since we still take phone calls every day, telling us about other COSCA work that needs to get done, we'll probably be doing a lot of that work too. And if during Matt's report on ranger duties, he may explain some ranger stuff going on as well. But we're happy that we've been pretty successful with our weed management work, and seeing it expand is kind of what we hoped for. And that's where the Woolsey Fire funds, I think, will really start lending the improvements to the environment that we're seeking.
Questions? Mr. Nichols?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Stark, could you just maybe expound a little bit on weed management? Because I know we've got hazardous vegetation for fire, and I know we've got the invasive plants we've been dealing with in the arroyo with palms and such. Is the weed management like an umbrella for all this, or is this like targeting something specific?
Well, it's kind of both. A weed is just an invasive species for us. It's funny, I once heard a weed described as a plant growing where the person who manages that piece of land doesn't want the plant growing. But the invasive species is sort of universal. So, especially in our fire-prone ecology here, that's probably our biggest threat to losing our native plant communities is infestation by invasive species. So we've taken a close look at each of our open space areas and to see where we think we have the best opportunities to make real headway in either protecting existing native plant communities or trying to get them to expand. There's a lot of strategy goes into weed management planning. It's not just running around everywhere and killing weeds. When we commit to an area, these are multi-year projects on any given area. So we're looking at areas where we think we can make the biggest impact for a reasonable cost. And trying to work throughout the open space system, so we're not just focusing in one area. Our area in the arroyo is pretty focused. The arundo only really grows along the creeks, so that's where we go. But there is a fire safety component to some of this as well. And when we set priorities for areas, we are considering that. But we're looking at species that are known fire threats, and it happens that the palms in the arundo and the arroyo are fire threats. But our Russian thistle, the tumbleweed, is spread much more broadly throughout our open space network. So we're starting to identify some locations where we could do some work. so we have prioritized some areas that are adjacent to, built communities.
Okay, thank you. I just was, as you were talking about that, I was just reflecting on a trail workday in Wildwood. I think it was maybe a couple years ago. I could be wrong. Mr. Kuba can correct me, but I think they had so many people show up that they had them start pulling weeds along roadside. And I thought, what a great help to do that. But I think also it passes along that educational information to those people that, yeah, they might look nice, but they're not supposed to be there. So, we have a great way to not only get the work done, but kind of help the education process at the same time. So appreciate your targeting some of these things, but even in an overflow program, we get some things accomplished. So thanks for the efforts.
We're fortunate to have volunteers willing to pull weeds, because when I was a kid, pulling weeds was punishment. But I think our community is keyed in on environmental improvement. So that's part of our job, is to help people feel great about weeding.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All this thought about weeds. If you have the need, stop by my house.
There you go.
Ms. Sullivan.
My questions and comments weren't too dissimilar from Director Nichols, but I'm glad this is a priority and that it's something that COSCA's managing. However, will there be the opportunity for that volunteer corps as an addition to what's being done? All of the fennel fight that we did in the Western Plateau was primarily volunteer, as far as I know, and that was a little overwhelming, but I hate to lose the volunteer aspect of it.
I think there'll certainly be opportunities for that. There's opportunities for all sorts of volunteer work all over our open space. It's just the wrangling of volunteers, but there's plenty of this work that can be done just with people and hand tools. And so when we find those projects, I think we'll look to that. On some of our trail work days, we've done other trail work days where we've done tumbleweed on the road going down into the Western Plateau, and that knocked it back a couple of years. So we do think even those episodic attacks on it can be effective.
Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for your report on that as well. This is not exactly a weed, but since palms have been brought up as part of this discussion, is there an overall strategy? And I would note that about maybe less than 200 feet from where our previous item was, with that gully, there's a palm tree that caused the one house on Autumn Ridge to burn during the Woolsey fire because of fronds that were flying off of that palm tree that night with the terribly high winds.
Yeah.
So what is our approach when it comes to palm trees in open space?
So we've mapped most of them. Fortunately, they're really easy to map on a computer with air photos, so you don't have to run all over the place. But they seem to be focused in certain areas, so they're not as broadly distributed as some others. When we originally went out to bid on the project in the Arroyo for physically removing those trees, maybe there were 200 trees in there, but we were looking at $800,000 just because of access constraints to where a lot of these palms are. If they were all right next to where you could drive a truck and a shredder, that would be great. But the cost of removing fully grown trees is high. So the overall plan would be to kill them in place. And that could be achieved in a number of ways through either girdling or direct applications of herbicides.
Okay, and that could be part of this weed abatement program we're talking about?
Yeah, down the line, we are looking probably to focus these efforts in the Arroyo because it's an area that we're already mobilized and focused on. And we think that we can make the biggest environmental benefit in the shortest amount of time by focusing on the Arroyo, at least for the coming years. But we know where they are.
Good.
So.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Any other questions? Very good. This is a receive and file. I don't believe we need a motion on that. So let's go to our next item there, the COSCA Volunteer Corps activity.
I think that's just a
That's just a written report that is for your information and can also be received and filed.
Very good, thank you. And then one that we always look forward to, our Ranger Operations and Maintenance activities. Mr. Stark, is that Mr. Kuda?
Yeah, we'll run this over to Mr. Kuba, but we will fire up his slideshow here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will say, well, that's a good starting point. That was the other day, and a wonderful end of this round of rain. I do want to talk about Mr. Stark's comments about and Director Nichols' comment about doing weeds during Trail Workday. Trail Workday is coming up the third week, Saturday of March. It will be in Hill Canyon, and a fair portion of it is weed removal that day. So there will be a lot of weeds meeting their demise. I do want to say I'm very proud of the Rangers this year. We have a program with the Rangers called DAMP, which stands for Drainage Action Maintenance Plan, and they were very proactive this year, got sandbags out where they needed to be, got the V-ditches cleaned. We had very little major damage. There was lots of little damage, so and lots of beauty. I was out today, and there's a lot of mushrooms out there. It's beautiful to see. So my typical, why is it an open space? That is an industrial lawnmower, not just a homeowner lawnmower. That is like what you would use for baseball fields and stuff. And why was it out there? I don't know. But it had to be winched out, and so that kind of cleanup goes on all the time. Why was it out there? Somebody abandoned the dog. It wasn't chipped. It jumped in the truck with Ranger Nick, and Nick took him to the pound, no chip, and he was adopted very quickly. So, yeah, everybody was lining up for that one. But anyway, so that's Lake Eleanor. The spillway on the left was going full blast, and even with that much water coming in, we've cut down the amount of water going over the top of the dam quite a bit. So it's that's pretty acceptable, but very dramatic, very beautiful. So during the rain, people adapt, and this is one of the porta potties in open space. And this was the case in the urban parks this week as well. Almost every restroom was locked from the inside. There was one restroom, the person had set up a tent inside. You can see on this one there's artwork posted on the walls. Yeah, it was very dramatic, and it's something that the Rangers do deal with. So this is the kind of work that goes on during the rain. When I was a ranger, of course, the time to be out working the trails is when it's raining, so you can see where the problems are and try and get them fixed before they cause any more damage. On the left is our new trail machine. It's called the Dingo. We're learning how to use it. It's got some really good applications. It's very strong. It's perfect for filling ruts like this. It's not a great machine for building trail. It doesn't cut really deep, but with some technique, we might get there. This is some compaction projects that were done down at the first bridge in Hill Canyon and at the Rancho Potrero lot. Brought in some road base and compacted it in. Cuts down on dust, stabilizes things, and makes it much more accessible. Some interpretive stuff for CRPD. The Rangers are doing, showing what a plastic snake looks like, and showing kind of what the Rangers do on a daily basis, demonstrating tools. And there may be a future ranger sitting there. We don't know. Almost got one. Almost. He had just unloaded it off the truck, and he said he was working on it. Yeah, sure. So sometimes you got to be 5 minutes later. So anyway, this is this is a sunrise. This was the sunrise a couple days ago before the major rain came in. And you know the saying, so red sky at dawn, oh no. I think something like that.
Something like that.
You were never a sailor, were you?
No, I was not. Thank you very much. Yeah. I'm available for questions.
That's Mr. Nichols.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kuba, thanks for the report. I do remember hearing from your predecessor, Mr. Friedel,
That was good.
that overall the Parks and Open Space fared fairly well. But I would have to say it's a large part to you and your team's effort. I mean, because I know after the Woolsey fire, we had a lot of work to be done. And then in the subsequent years, especially last year and this year, there's been a lot of work, but it appears that you've kind of got your, at least arms around it this go around. How long does that last until the next blowout comes?
That's an interesting question. I was going to put that in the CRPD response as well, but about 5 years ago, we really worked on prepping for rain as much as we could, putting in drainage things in the urban parks as well. We changed a lot of the drainage in urban parks. Pepper Tree is a good example. The Pepper Tree Park is the main drainage for everything north of it, and all the water goes through there, and there's a major gully there. Well, it would back up every year, so we took a backflow gate and put that over it. So as the water rises, it doesn't clog. And we've done things like that. We've also been very proactive. In November, we ordered pallets of sandbags. They're sitting there ready. All the trucks have sandbags and wattles in them, the straw wattles, and those are pre-placed ahead of storms now. So we're much more proactive, and it really has paid off. But it took a few years to figure out where the problems were. We've gotten there, and I think we're ahead of it. This was some pretty big rains we saw this year.
Yeah, I was going to say it's really a testimony to your insights, but also the staff's aggressive activity on that. So be sure and pass along my thanks for that effort, because I know it takes a lot of time and effort to make it happen, but the results are paying off. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? I have one quick one. The gentleman who was cleaning his motorbike reminded me, but how have our interactions been with those who are also using electric-powered motorbikes and that sort of thing, as opposed to just the gasoline ones? Are we having interactions more or less? How is it going?
It's a very difficult situation to deal with. The bikes are quiet. They're very fast. They're actually a lot of times ridden by juveniles. The rangers have written 2 citations in the past couple of months, so that's excellent. But it's a matter of opportunity. You have to be in the right place at exactly the right time. You have to see them riding it in open space in order to write the citation. Like in that situation, he hadn't broken any laws on open space. So it's a difficult thing, and we can't chase them. That's too dangerous for the person, we're in a big truck and we're not as nimble. So it's a tough situation, and it's ongoing. So I don't know what the correct answer is yet.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I do live on the open space and occasionally see what I believe are, they're down the hill a little bit, but they go very quick along the trails. I think there's a hazard for those folks who are merely walking, or of course, if someone's riding a horse in that area, there's real potential for confrontation. Let's keep that in our mind, how we can address that, because I think it's just a matter of time before something untold happens that we need to really look at.
It's a major topic with open space and trail managers throughout the country, and the technology is advancing faster than the law to license them or have them registered or anything. So it will catch up at some point, but right now the technology is going super fast.
On the happy side, I did have a good conversation with a cyclist, mountain biker the other day, who came to us from LA County and was so pleased to see how we share our trails. And he was pleasantly surprised and very happy about that. But we also have that other issue with motorized.
It's a matter of respect, and mountain bikers, pedalers earn their stripes. And by going slower, they interact more with nature, they interact more with people, so you have a better understanding of what their responsibility is to the trails. And I think you've got people that have bought into a fast thing, and it's a little bit butting heads right now. So.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Very good. Let's go on to our next item then. We do have COSCA updates, city representatives, and our general manager.
I don't have anything. I talked about the great job my guys are doing in the urban parks, so that's it for me.
Very good.
No updates from the city.
And Mr. Stark, anything further from you?
Nope, not from staff.
Very good. And then we go to our item 9, which is board member comments. Our board, any comments or any things you want to bring forward? Ms. Sullivan.
Just to reiterate what our public speaker talked about, Trails Education Days is an amazing experience, and if you haven't been to it or volunteered, I highly recommend. The courtesy and safety skit that we do includes a hiker, a mountain biker, and an equestrian, and the hiker has a dog off leash. So it is a skit that is absolute chaos. The kids love it, and they remember it. So I encourage anyone that has the time to volunteer. The links are up on the website, I believe, for the Sign Up Genius. So we're still looking for hike leaders. I still need a mountain biker for one of the days, and we're really short on equestrians. So if you know anyone in the equestrian community that would be able to participate, it does take an animal with a certain temperament to be around a dog off leash and a bunch of screaming kids. And then, of course, the other volunteer opportunity is Trail Work Day on March 16th. And again, highly recommend, if you can come out, please do.
Thank you. Any other comments, board members? Very good then. We do have a closed session, and I will turn it over to Mr. Doan.
Thank you. This evening we have 2 items to discuss in closed session. They're both listed on the agenda. We will be going to another room for closed session, but for those following along at home and TOTV, we will be returning prior to adjournment for a short report.
Very good. So let's adjourn this session. We'll go to our closed session and come back in for a report. Very good, and welcome back, everybody. We did have our closed session, and we'll let our attorney report out.
Thank you, Chair Engler. In closed session, both items were discussed. All directors were present and able to participate. And in both items, the directors gave staff unanimous direction, and there's no further reportable action at this time, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, and with that, I think we can adjourn till our next regular meeting on May 15th, 2024. Thank you all for attending.